Hi, let's talk about some armbands that I made for Tyrande Whisperwind. And so for reference, it's going to be these 3 bands here. They are sized to me. I measured the circumference of my arm. And they do technically go on a very specific way because it is molded and shaped to my arm. It's, kind of tapers a bit. And I'm going to see this. Kind of like a surprise. Which way does it go, right? And so, really quick to go on. They stay on really nice. I didn't have them slide off or anything. Didn't need any tape. And so, how I made these is with Worbla. Black Worbla, specifically. Do you need specifically black Worbla? Probably not. It was my first time working with it. It was nice that, like, if I stuck something somewhere that I didn't want it, I could quickly peel it off and not ruin something that was already there. Really a big plus, I feel like. Especially for small little detail things like this, like having that extra kind of security of being able to kind of go back in case you make a mistake, I think is extremely beneficial. So, to start, I used a tape measure, the kind you get with like a sewing kit. So it was really like bendable, right? And I measured the circumference of my arm here, and I went a little bigger around my wrist because I wanted this to kind of be free moving. And then I ended up putting those kind of dimensions. I guess I will say for the width, it was just a guess. I think I did 2 inches for this one, and then I think this one is 1.5 for each, so when it combined it was a full length of 3 inches, I believe. And so what I did is I traced an original design that I had drawn out onto a piece of paper, or redrew it onto a piece of paper into those dimensions. So like one might have been a rectangle the size of like a 9x2, and then the next one was like a 6x2, and then the last one was like, I don't know, 4.5 by 1.5, something like that. And so you can kind of see those boxes here. Hope that's in. Kind of see the boxes I made. And then I drew the design for each. I did have to make modifications for each one. So this is the upper arm, middle, and the bracelet. And so I did make adjustments as I went along, taking out pieces, subbing things in to make it balanced. Really a huge judgment call on my part. So from here, you'll notice like nothing's cut out or anything, right? So how did I get this onto these? The magic is in parchment paper, wax paper. So I put the wax paper on top of the design, right? And then I used a Sharpie and I traced the design onto the parchment paper. So then once I had all of the designs carried over to this parchment paper, original paper can kind of just go off to the side. So all the Sharpie things, right? Okay, so then what I did is I did cut out strips that were about the height and width of these pieces, 2 for the bracelet, 1 for each of the others. And then I heated up the Worbla with the heat gun, put the wax paper on top of it, and then I used just a regular mechanical pencil, and then I pressed into the wax paper so it would press into the Worbla. And what that's doing is it's creating kind of like a, I don't think the term is embossing, but I'm creating the outline into the Worbla. So that way I can trace it, all of it, and then cut it out. So what I'm doing is I'm giving myself a base of the design in the Worbla. If that doesn't make any sense whatsoever, it's completely confusing, I believe the live stream that I did is saved to my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/honey, not honey bunch, because that was taken. It's bunch of honey. So if the feed is still there, that it's saved, you can watch me making these bracelets. If it's not, I guess I can try and reiterate again. So it's, the bottom is a thin, just one layer of Worbla, a sheet of Worbla, not Worbla foam Worbla. These bracelets get thick because you're adding more Worbla to it. So all you want is just a base single sheet of Worbla. Put the wax paper on top. Heat the Worbla, not the paper and the Worbla, but like make sure the paper's in a good position on the Worbla. Lift up part of it, heat it up, lay the paper down, use your pencil, trace. The wax paper will stick to the Worbla slightly, which is great because that'll give you great guidelines. So when you do lift up on the other side, the paper will still stay on the Worbla, and you can make sure that everything stays straight and even. Once you transfer all of the designs over to the Worbla, you can use your preferred method. I use scissors plus X-Acto knives to cut out the design. You probably won't be able to tell on this piece. Let's see. So it is a flat piece of Worbla on the back, which is that single sheet that I mentioned that is getting cut out. And then I used scrap pieces of Worbla, rolled them up into little tubes, and then laid it on top of the design. So it gets a little thicker. So this is technically about the thickness that it would be if you would start with the Worbla foam Worbla method. The other thing is, because it's all Worbla, right? The thicker you go, the harder it's going to be to have some flexibility. And so less is more here. So just laid the Worbla along the path based on the design. So if, pieces, let's see what's over here. Where's a crossover? The bracelet here is kind of, this is when I started getting too small. So, if I knew that a solid piece was going straight across and these were looking like they were being cut through by that solid piece, I tried to lay solids first, and I did try to work from one side to the other. And then I did the two small bracelets separately and then joined them together and just kind of tried to squish and fix things. And then I didn't connect them so that there was some flexibility so that I could slide it on and off my wrist, which is why I made it bigger, because you have to account for the width of your hand. And then the other ones I did connect. They are completely solid. I mean, they have some, I don't know if that carries some flexibility, but it's not flexibility where it's going to change shape. So if you use Worbla, don't expect that. And again, the same method. It's super flat on the inside. I didn't paint the inside at all. Didn't need to. It's flat against my arm. And then just laying those pieces, little strips that I rolled up onto the design. And that was that. What else? So of course I reheated it slightly once all the designs were made and laid onto it. And I did put them against my arm, make sure that it was sized properly, join them together. Did I need to stretch it out a little more? Did I need to close it up? I made those adjustments using my body. Once that was all done, I painted it I used a combination of white and a pavement gray to get the light gray. I didn't buy just a flat gray, light gray. And then I used I think it was called Pure Silver, and it is an acrylic paint. And all it really does is, it is silver, but it's very thin. And so what that means is whatever color you paint as the base, and you put this silver on top of it, it's just going to add this kind of shiny sheen to it, kind of iridescent almost. It does have a silver hue to it, so it does help in that regard. But depending on the kind of silver metalish color that you're going for, if you go dark, this lighter pure silver is not going to make it lighter. It's only going to retain that really dark color. So I found I had to go kind of a lighter gray that kind of looked funny, but once you add the silver and you start looking at it in the light, it looks just right. The other thing I didn't do are those like white highlights. I know sometimes people will do that to compensate for making it look more like it is metal, and I wanted to experiment with using that pure silver, which gives everything an iridescent hue. So usually what people do is they add those highlights to make it look like it's shiny, because a lot of acrylic paints, they're flat, they're matte, they don't give that appearance. And so my goal with using the pure silver acrylic paint is that it should be shiny and iridescent enough that in the light it will start to pick up kind of those highlights from natural light. I'm not sure if that kind of makes sense, but yeah. That's just a personal preference. I've used that technique on my Gul'dan armor. I think it works great. But you got to find what works for you. And a lot of the times it really is about experimentation. And this is another one of those experimentations. Did I like just using pure silver paint? Did it give the appearance of metal without needing that extra, white line? And I feel like it did. I gotta get some pictures back, but I'm happy with the way it turned out. I really like it. So that is it for the bracers. If you have any other questions, please leave comments below and I will answer them. So if you like this video, subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends. I have more videos coming for this series for Tyrande Whisperwind. I'll talk about how I made her chest piece, her bracers, and even her entire crown, headpiece, wig contraption thing. So watch those, get inspired, happy crafting.